Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Even Better podcast. This is Sinikka Waugh, and I'm delighted to have you here today. And I am so excited to welcome our guest today, Sheri Zevenbergren. Sheri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So for those of you who don't know Sheri, I am delighted to introduce Sheri. Sheri Zevenbergren has joined our network here in the last few months anyway, and just connected through a mutual acquaintance. And I'm so glad that we did, because her energy and the enthusiasm, and I knew from the very first moment that we were on a call together, I knew right away that we would wind up working together in some capacity, and that we serve a similar clientele, and that we have a similar passion for what we do, and that we are serving similar people in the similar way with similar enthusiasm, and that we're committed to similar goals and missions. So Sheri is a coach and a trainer. She is helping people specifically in her space of emotional intelligence, as she's specifically helping people develop and apply self-awareness. And she's doing that to help them embrace their differences, unlock their potential, engineer their lives, and engineer the lives they truly want. And I just love this, helping people just live the lives that they really want. So she's working with people of all age ranges, which I think is just really, really lovely. And she is working with individuals and teams and couples, so just a range of clientele. And I have found her to be very straightforward. I have found her to be very enthusiastic. I have found her to be absolutely not holding back when she's ready to try something new, just all in whatever she's doing, and all in. If you could see her now, like I can, I know she's all in with her smiles and all in with her enthusiasm, and just ready to try the new day. So I am just thrilled for this conversation, and I love that our listeners are going to get to hear just a piece of the enthusiasm that I have delighted in getting to know Sheri as well. So Sheri, in your expertise, so you with self-awareness, let's talk a little bit about how your journey and why it is that self-awareness is part of your journey and part of your story. Before we get going too far here, tell us a little bit about why would you go down a path of self-awareness as your sort of field of study or your field of passion as a coach?
Well, I realized that I had always loved to do assessments, like in Teen Beat or whatever magazines kids don't have anymore. Anytime I would learn something new about myself, I was just so excited about it and thought, okay, now what can I do with this information? And I always thought myself to be self-aware because I knew I was a certain way, a little OCD at times, enthusiastic to maybe a higher level than necessarily one sometimes. I thought I really knew myself. And then when I got into my 40s, I thought, okay, wait a minute. I thought I knew myself better than I clearly do, because I was constantly looking for that next role and that next thing that was really going to bring me fulfillment. And even though I had on paper what appeared to be the life I really wanted, I was still feeling some void of some sort or some lack of fulfillment, and couldn't figure out why, and realized, okay, I'm the common denominator here. So what is it about myself? Where am I lacking awareness? Because there's needs to be something I can do here. And I always felt as if I was taking full ownership over my life, which I strongly believe people need to do. And I felt somewhat hypocritical, because I thought, okay, I know my time here on earth is limited. I want to live it to the fullest, yet I'm not able to figure out how to do so. So when I really took some time to self-reflect, which was something I generally hadn't done, I thought I did because I would do it while driving or working out or whatever. I felt like I was self-reflecting, felt like I was self-aware, but I didn't do it to the degree I needed to really be self-aware to the degree I wanted to be, because I always had a hard time stopping. I was always in motion, and I was always wanting to do something productive. And self-reflection didn't seem like a productive activity because it wasn't on my to-do list. So when I started to do that for the first time and realized, okay, this this still isn't the role that's going to bring me the fulfillment I want. And I was traveling for work, and I was traveling to Europe, and I thought, okay, this is the thing. This is going to be the role because I love to travel. And it still wasn't. It's kind of like I had to get hit in the head with a brick to realize, okay, I really need to do this self-reflection thing and really need to do something that's not necessarily on my to-do list to really figure it out. So that's what sent me down this path.
That's what sent you down this path. Fantastic. And so today, in today's world, how do you spend your days? What does a day look like for you, Sheri?
I journal. That's how I try to start each day. And I say try because sometimes it depends upon the amount of coffee I have, how easy it is to wake the kids up, all the things, right? Life. But I will try to journal at least once a day and really be more aware of how I'm feeling and what thoughts are leading to those feelings. So that's how I try to start my day. I also start my day ideally by doing 5 minutes of meditation, which 10 years ago, the idea of meditating was just, even though people talked about it and people talked about this journaling thing, it all seems so woo-woo to me. So I really try to do that at least 5 minutes a day. It doesn't always happen, but afterward, each time, even though I know it's productive, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's going to be the most productive thing in the moment when I'm, wanting to cross something off my list, but I try to talk myself into it. And I've incorporated exercise into almost every day because, again, that was one of those things that I used to be able to say, oh, I can get more done if I'm not doing that. So, and then a lot of discussion with clients throughout my self-awareness journey. I've realized that my primary value is connection. And I've known that I've loved people, but now that I've really recognized it as my primary value, I understand to what degree I need to be around people and to really connect, which is what makes my job so fun, because that's, my coaching is all about connection and helping and serving other people. And I just love it.
Right. And so you're a coach and you're a trainer, and the Dash Mindset is your organization?
Yes. And the reason that I call it the Dash Mindset is because we don't know when our time is going to be up. Life is short, and the only thing we're guaranteed is our birth and our death. So I have always tried to live it to the fullest. And when I realized, okay, wait a minute, I'm not able to live it to the fullest if I'm feeling like there's a void out there, I need to do something about it. Now that I recognize that, self-awareness is really the key to that, I'm helping other people do the same.
You bet. That dash, the dash between the birth and the death dates, right?
Yep.
Dash, the life in between. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So today we're talking about 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. And this is part of our ongoing mission, right? To help us all have better work days so that together we can co-create better communities. When we think about developing self-awareness, it is not limited to, we don't develop self-awareness only if we're a leader. We don't develop self-awareness only if we're an individual contributor, only if we're an executive, only if we're a business owner, only if we're a woman in the workplace, only if we're a man in the workplace, only if we're just starting out in our workplace journey, only if we're just ready to retire from our workplace journey, only if we're looking for what's next in our workplace journey, right? My understanding, and I know this is what we teach here at Your Clear Next Step, and I have to believe this is where you're coming from as well. 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. We all need to develop self-awareness wherever we are, whoever we are, however we're showing up in our workplace. This is something for all of us. Is that not right, Sheri?
Absolutely. And I think that when I was my past self, the long ago past self, I was self-aware in certain areas of my life, but not in my life as a whole. So I would be self-aware from the standpoint of a leader, maybe. And I felt like, okay, I'm self-aware when it comes to being a mom. But when I really stepped back and looked at my life in a holistic way, I realized how much self-awareness I lacked, and realized, we're not ever taught this in life. We're taught about, photosynthesis and trigonometry, and we're taught about certain things in the workplace. And we don't really ever learn about stepping back and really thinking through who we are. So much of us relies upon the opinions of others and who we're told we are by others, because that's what we're conditioned to do. Is we do what our parents say, we go to school, We rely on the external validation of other people in school. We become employees and we rely upon that external validation of our employers. And we're not conscious that it's actually happening, but a lot of our beliefs aren't even our own because we've just been conditioned to believe certain things that are believed in the environment around us. And we don't even recognize that, oh, wait a minute, what do I really think? How self-aware am I really? Because we're so busy taking on the identity that we've kind of been assigned by society.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. So if we believe that self-awareness is something that we all need to develop and we all need to grow in it, we've got 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. So let's dive into the first one. So the first one you've sort of shared here in advance is we're not taught how to be self-aware. Let's dive into that. When you were just starting to talk about that a little bit, but let's dive a little bit deeper into that. What do you mean we're not taught how to be self-aware? How do we know?
I think so many of us are taught to be productive or taught that we need to get certain things done. And we start just kind of, running on the treadmill of life that no one ever actually says, hey, wait a minute, let's really stop and take time to think about what you really want in life. And I think that's the case with so many things that are kind of allow us to be some of those fundamental things that are really necessary to live the life we really want is we're not taught. We're so busy learning all these other things that we don't take time to really step back or even recognize that it's okay to step back and have our own thoughts and our own beliefs about who we are.
Yeah. So you were describing in your introduction, you were describing your own experience about being productive and getting stuff done and checking things off the list. And I think about my own, I am an achiever, right? This is, you don't have to spend much time with me to recognize that about who I am, right? I'm an achiever. But that if we wanted, as we're thinking about that desire to become self-aware, that reason to we think about that we're not taught how to be self-aware. How early, and this is straying a little bit from our topic, but I'm curious, how early could we teach that? Can we teach that to kids? Can we teach that to the itty bitties? Can we teach that to our students that you work with, high school and college students, and I think you call them more seasoned individuals like you and me. But like how soon could we, is there hope? How soon could we learn to be self-aware?
Well, one thing I really love is that my coach, Kristen Sheri, who's the one who developed the tool UMAP, which is a tool that I use with all of my clients. It's the foundational level of all my coaching. She has written some children's books and I read them with my boys and just love them. And she has developed a UMAP that can be, I generally use it for adults or near adults, but she's also developed a couple other UMAPs for youth that are just more simplistic, that really help kids understand, okay, I have value, I have particular skills I want to use, I have values, I know what's important to me, I have particular strengths, the talents that are just inherent within me, and I have a unique personality. And so she has written a book on each topic in addition to a book that's called I Have Quirks, that really helps kids understand that everyone, is unique and has quirks, and there's no point in making fun of someone when they're different, because we're all different in our own unique way, and which is a beautiful thing. So I do think there's hope. And I think we're certainly taught to some degree about our differences, and that, differences are beautiful and all the things, but maybe not as much about, oh, wait a minute, there are certain things that are going to be important to me that are less important to someone else, or there are certain strengths I have and certain strengths other people have. It doesn't mean we all need to have all the strengths. We just have unique ones. So I love the book. She has them on Amazon. Her name's Kristen Sheri. They're just fantastic. So I'm telling everybody all about the kids' books, because the younger we start, the better, we can be. So
Absolutely. And we need to develop this, because it's not something that we're taught in today's, like, based on where we are. We haven't been taught this up till now. So we need to develop it. So what about the second one? So our time is limited, and this gets to the name of your company, the Dash Mindset. I think our time is limited. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Well, generally people think, oh, well, that's a morbid thought, which it kind of is. But I really think it's important to think about the fact that none of us is immortal, because it's just we're that much more appreciative of the life we have when we recognize that it could end at any point in time and we don't know where we are in line. When we're kids, we think, oh, life is, everybody else is old, right? And we have forever until we can, have forever to do that thing. In our 20s, we think, okay, well, now we're in our 20s. Now things are getting serious. But generally speaking, we talk about doing things someday, and we don't know if and when that time is going to come. So my husband and I love to travel. So we've always traveled earlier thinking, well, we don't know what retirement is going to bring. We don't know how long we'll be around. Maybe we'll be sick, maybe we'll retire, and then, we won't be able to travel. So we've always tried to incorporate the things we're really passionate about into life. But sometimes I think we postpone because we lose sight of the fact that our time is limited. So I encourage people to really think about, okay, what can you do now? And try not to use the word someday.
Yeah. And that developing that self-awareness, when you think, let's make sure we've got that full understanding of when you're talking about that developing of self-awareness, what all goes into that is so time sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there urgency with that, Sheri? Why is it so important that we do that now and that we don't wait?
We have less regrets later in life, and we're less frantic if we realize, okay, wait a minute, there are certain things I can do now and I don't have to postpone. Let's say somebody wants to open a bakery someday. Someday might not end up being until they're 70 years old. And then who knows if that's something they really want to do at that point. So I think in general, we think, okay, well, we're too young to do that thing. And then all of a sudden we feel like, oh, we're too old to do that thing. There's never a perfect age or a perfect time. And I mean, I know my husband laughs because years ago, he told me I should start a coaching business. And I said, how would I do that? And we often get stuck in the how and think about, well, how would I do that? This clearly isn't the right time. I don't know how to do that. But a lot of the things that are worth it in life are things that if we kind of put the how aside and think about, okay, this is something that I really want to do. This is something I'd be really good at. Why don't I just figure it out? It's kind of like building the airplane as you're flying it when it comes to the things that might be most important.
Right. And if I'm self-aware, then I understand what I value. I understand what value I bring to the table. I understand my strengths. I understand what I can draw on. And I also understand my blind spots and where I'm going to need help, because otherwise I'm going to, get into some discomfort.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, speaking of my husband and I loving to travel, knowing that that's something we both value, we are less likely to put money towards something else. And we're more likely to spend our money on that rather than just kind of modeling the behavior of everyone else. I have friends who have bought campers because camping is very important to them. And I know that, I'm one of those people who want to camp, but I know, okay, wait a minute, I don't actually value camping. I'm not going to put my money there. So I think, just knowing, okay, what's really most important to you, and knowing what you truly value and ensuring that you're living in alignment with those values is so important. Otherwise, you're always going to feel a little off and not really know why.
Right. I wonder if FOMO, the fear of missing out, I wonder how tied that is to self-awareness. Like I'm missing out on something. I'm missing out, whether though they're having fun over there, I'm not having enough fun. Well, but if I'm self-aware enough to know that actually I am having fun because I'm living my best life, or I'm doing exactly and that thing that they're doing over there, which is camping, which is something I don't even want to do anyway. Like I've always wanted to want to camp, but I don't actually want to camp because bugs and mosquitoes and did I say bugs? Like, oh,
Humid. Yeah. I do like the s'mores and campfire aspect of camping. So I could, just go to someone else's campground and do that and leave. But so I often try to walk myself through particular situations and think through, okay, what's this really going to be like? And try to have this self-awareness of particular situations and how I'm really going to feel, not how I think I should feel. Or how I want to feel, but how I'll actually feel in a particular circumstance.
lovely, lovely. That might give us the ability to say yes to the things we should be saying yes to, the ability to say no to the things we should say no to. Just back to that whole idea of our time is limited. Okay, we could go on here for a really long time. So I'm going to keep us moving. We're here with Sheri Zevenbergren, and we're talking about 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. We're not taught how to be self-aware, so you really need to hone in and develop this stuff. Our time is limited. We're moving on to number 3. Self-awareness allows us to recognize that we have more choices than we think. Oh, I think we were starting to tease this out. Sheri, take us down this path.
So even though I felt like, okay, I own my life, I'm responsible for it, I need to figure out how it's going to be the most fulfilling to me, I was so blind to the choices I had because the only thing I knew was the environment I was in. So, growing up, my brothers were both engineers. I knew I didn't want to do that. And I was really, although now in retrospect, it kind of feels like I had kind of a checklist of options for career paths. No one actually presented me with a checklist, but I thought, well, okay, I'm organized and I like numbers and I liked my high school accounting teacher. So I went into accounting and finance because it felt like my choices were pretty limited to this checklist that didn't actually exist. And so then when I started down that finance and accounting path, the only world I knew was the corporate world. And so it felt like, well, I guess I'll do corporate for the rest of my life. And there's nothing wrong with that, except it wasn't fulfilling to me. And so I kept looking for the right role within that environment and just had these blinders on. So I, was kind of buying into the thought process of the people in that environment because that's all I knew. So when I recognized, okay, wait a minute, there are other people doing other things. I can do those other things. Why? And just realizing that I hadn't even realized that I could do those other things made me aware of all the choices I actually had. So, I think we often think, oh, I have to go to work. I have to do this. I should do this. I should do that. When really we have more choices in life than we recognize. And we have some blinders on that we don't even know exist. I think each of us does because of whatever environment we've been in.
So I'm going to take that down to a smaller example. You broadened it out to the career opportunities there, which is super, super powerful and wonderful. And I'm going to yes and you here. I'm going to take it down to the smaller example of your camping and the s'mores example. Like, you have more choices. You don't have to say, yes, I want to camp, or no, I don't want to camp. You could say, I would love to join you at the campfire from 7 to 9 while you guys are, doing s'mores. I would love to join you for that part. And then I'll go back home and sleep
I'm going to go home and sleep in bed with air conditioning.
There's with the air conditioning right there. There are more choices than you think. If you stop and you really think about it, there are more choices. It's not yes or no. It's not necessarily A or B. There could be a range of options here.
And I remind myself of that every day because we think, okay, it's either yes or no. It's black or white. They're like as if there are 2 options, and really there are 100 different options when it comes to one event or one thing throughout every aspect of life, not just career.
Yeah. Oh, really lovely. Lovely. Okay, so we're talking about 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. Let's move on to number 4. This sounds lovely. This sounds like something we all need. So I'm pause right now, make sure everybody's listening. Number 4, self-awareness allows us to recognize we have fewer problems than we think. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Self-awareness allows us to recognize we have fewer problems than we think. Oh, I think we all need a dose of this. Sheri, talk us through this one to help us understand.
So when we lack awareness of what our strengths are, what we naturally do well, which is easy to do because we just operate the way we operate. It's hard to read the label when you're in the jar. But when we gain awareness of, okay, here's what I do well, and other people might be able to see it, but I can't because it's just the way I do life. When we realize what we do well, we're less concerned about what we don't do well. And it's so hard to see. I mean, it really does take self-reflection and some time and space to really figure it out because If I'm, just bad at numbers and I'm trying so hard to be good at numbers, it's going to seem like I have a problem, and I'm going to question, okay, what's wrong with me? Why can all my colleagues do this well? Why can, my brother do it well? Or why can everybody around me seem to do it well and I can't? And that there's so many things like that. Maybe if I hadn't recognized that I really just don't actually like camping, if I was trying to go camping and people were pitching their tents and building their campfires or whatever people do when they camp, and I was taking 3 hours to pitch my tent, I would think, what's wrong with me? When in reality, I have no desire to pitch a tent. I'm not good at it. I don't want to do any of those things. It's just one less problem. It's just one thing, a problem I can just cross off my list. One thing that I think we all, all of us who are moms have some level of mom guilt every once in a while that creeps in. And I have to think through and think about the fact that, wait a minute, there's some things that I just don't even want to do. I'm not good at them and I don't want to do them. So it's not a problem that I'm not baking this big, beautiful cake for my son's birthday. It's more of my personality to go to order cupcakes at Hy-Vee and go pick them up. That's who I am. It's not a problem that I don't make cakes. It's fine. He doesn't care. So I think just recognition of what we do well, what we don't even want to do in the first place, whether we do it well or not, it just allows us to just eliminate some of those things that aren't even problems to begin with until we make them problems.
Right. And then we make that competition with others that doesn't need to be a competition. We create a competition that can turn into conflict even with other people that's a problem that doesn't need to be a problem. We can just delight in the fact that, my goodness, you create beautiful cakes, and my goodness, I can go to Hy-Vee with you. Like, wow. Like you and we can carpool to Hy-Vee together. Well, Sally over there creates those amazing cakes. Absolutely.
And I have a few extra hours in my day because I don't even want to make a cake.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. The first phone call that we were on, I knew that there would be so many things that we had in common.
Well, I knew when Don told me, oh, you need to call Sinikka, I thought, okay, yep, I totally trust that I'm going to love this woman, which I do.
This is so delightful. We have fewer problems than we think. Because sometimes our problems, they come up in our head. What is it that Cy Wakeman, she's based out of Omaha, and I love the way she puts it. She says, stop believing everything you think.
Oh, yes.
Stop believing everything you think, right? And so I think this self-awareness might allow us to stop believing everything we think, right? If we get in and we're really aware of, okay, what are my beliefs and what do I value and what value do I bring to the table here and what really is true, maybe we can recognize that the problems we think we have aren't really problems at all.
We're all always going to have some inner critic and some negative voice in our mind, but it doesn't have to scream at us all the time. If we as much, it doesn't have to scream as loudly if we recognize, oh, wait a minute, I don't even want to do that thing anyway. I shouldn't be doing that thing, and I should hand that over to someone who actually enjoys it and is better at it.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Okay. So we're on to number 5. We're talking about 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. And we're here with Sheri Zevenbergren. And if you've just joined in, you've got to go back to the beginning and rewind because you've missed all sorts of great stuff. So we are here. Number 5, understanding ourselves. Oh, and this is probably my favorite. Understanding ourselves allows us to better understand others. So self-aware so that we can connect better with others. Let's hang out here for a minute. Take us through this one, Sheri.
I'm reminding myself of this all the time. And I'll say specifically in my marriage, because that's generally where we question, why is he doing something like this way? Or why is she doing something this way? Really understanding the fact that we're unique, we have unique experiences, we have unique beliefs, strengths, all the things, helps us realize that everyone else does too, and theirs are completely different. So if someone was acting in a certain way that confuses us, I try to remind myself, oh, wait a minute, I'm equally confusing to other people because I'm completely different. My experiences are completely different. Everything is completely different. So it allows us, I think, to have more empathy with other people. and be more supportive in a productive way if we can remind ourselves, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing something equally confusing and equally ridiculous from the perspective of at least one other person out there. And to appreciate the fact that, it's great that we all have these differences, because as ridiculous as some behavior might seem to us, we're able to complement each other in some way. And it's a matter of figuring that out. And it really starts with understanding ourselves.
Yeah. So the self-awareness that I am, so the phrase that I like to use when I'm teaching emotional intelligence in classes is that I'm a dyed-in-the-wool optimist, right? I wake up every morning knowing that it's all going to be okay. And then I clarify, and then I pause and say, well, I wake up that way, but I don't interact with humans that way. That takes 2 cups of coffee, because I'm not a morning person, right? I just don't do mornings super well. And I have these 2 experiences that are like core memories. And one of them was in college with my very best friend, Nancy. And we had separate rooms. So we were not roommates, became best friends in college. And at one point we shared a room together briefly for a weekend or something. I don't remember why. And at the end of the weekend, I will never forget her looking me in the eye. She just grabbed me by the shoulder. She looks me in the eye and she says, "You are my cherished, most dear friend, and I love you dearly. And we could never live together." She said, "Your inability to be pleasant in the morning is so mind-boggling to me, because you are so wonderful after 9. Who is this creature that is you before 9 a.m.?" And I just, it's such a core memory, but it didn't get better. And then there's this moment that my husband and I have been married for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And I was making my morning face. I apparently have a morning face. I was doing my hair, doing something in the morning. I was making my morning face, and he goes, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That face." I'm like, "Nothing's wrong with me. That's just my morning face." And so there's these 2 core memories that, okay, now I know I am self-aware that there is a moment in my day that happens between being horizontal and being able to communicate. And I have to self-manage, right? This is the next part about self-awareness is part of the battle. You've got to self-manage at some point in there. If you're going to interact with other humans, you got to do something about it. But there's this self-awareness that says, okay, I'm a mystery. I'm a mystery that's not really all that pleasant. And I know this. And so I got to self-manage. And that allows me to now go, okay, so there are people in my life. I have a teenage daughter who is not communicative before she walks out of the door. When she goes on her way to school, you just don't talk to her. And I'm like, "Oh, I know you. I know you, because I am self-aware, right? I created you."
It's baffling to me how even humans who we create, who act similarly to the way we do, are still baffling. I think it's a good reminder that even if someone is like me, they're still confusing.
Right. Why aren't you talking? Why are you so mean?
Oh.
I did that. Sorry.
Last weekend, so my husband was on a trip for a couple of weeks. He went to Iraq. That's another podcast, and he had a magnificent time. But thank goodness I was being particularly self-aware that day, because he'd gotten home. He was jet lagged Saturday morning. So I had been home with our kiddos and just didn't have the amount of alone time I generally desire. I love to be around people, but then I need to have a lot of alone time to re-energize. So Saturday morning, he's, not as jet lagged. He's excited to tell me about his trip, and I'm excited to hear about it. But I just realized that I was so irritated in that moment because he wouldn't stop talking. Because I had not had my alone time, and I found myself just not listening to the degree I wanted. I certainly was not expressing the enthusiasm I wanted and normally would. And I just said at one point, I said, "I am so sorry. I really want to hear all these things, but I am not in the place right now where I think my brain's just at capacity." And I said, "I think I just need to be alone for a while, and then I will re-engage and listen and remember all the things you're saying. And I was so glad. Otherwise, we could have easily ended up in a fight. And not that self-awareness, prevents all fights, whether it's work or marriage or whatever it is. But I just said, I know you're not going to really completely understand this, but just know it's in our best interest if I just, leave the house for a little while. And I did. And I went to a coffee shop and I came home and I said, okay, tell me whatever you want to do or whatever you want to tell me. And it was just so much better. I just really recognizing, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why is what he's doing irritating me? Because it's not logical right now.
Right.
And he's doing nothing wrong. It's my response to it that's frustrating me right now.
Yeah. And that self-awareness, being aware of what's my emotional response, what's happening in this moment, and then how am I able to adjust that, regulate that, manage that so that I can connect better with this human, this cherished, wonderful human in front of me, so that we can move the relationship forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
It takes so much work to really think that through.
Right.
But the fact that I realize I need alone time is the first step. Otherwise, I would have just been irritated. And then he would have been irritated by my irritation. And it's just this, never-ending spiral.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about, in this case, we've talked about personal examples because that's the kind of conversation we sometimes have. And easily anyone listening to us right now can think about workplace examples where these would also show up. A supervisor who's irritated because someone didn't do the work that they were supposed to have done, or someone left the cap not fully on something and so it spilled and made a terrible mess. Or someone who didn't do the upstream person who didn't do the work. And so now I'm the downstream person and I have to clean up or finish the work that didn't get done. And now I've got to stay late to pick up someone else's slack. Or I'm showing up to this meeting and I'm distracted because the meeting before it didn't go well, or somebody yelled at me, and all of these things, right? This self-awareness of what am I feeling in this moment? What are the emotions that are happening here? They're going to change my ability to interact in this moment well with the other humans. And if we can develop those skills, if we can develop that self-awareness to say, I am in this moment and I'm having either an emotional response to it, or I'm not bringing my best self here, or there's something else going on. There are options here, or I don't have as big a problem here as I thought I did, or I have limited time to do the right thing here, or I need to develop something here to grow. We can improve our work days, right? And we can help create this lasting, better effect so that workday goes better for us and for the people around us.
And realize too that each other person in the room or in whatever environment we're in is going through the same thing. They're showing up as their whole self, not just their work self. Like I shut the rest of myself down, and now I'm just here as my work self. We're an entire person, and we each have all of our experiences and all of the things that happened before work started that we're bringing with. So I think it helps me become more curious and think, I wonder what happened, 10 minutes ago, or what led to the way that person is acting right now, rather than, they're being a pain and they should change, right? Because we're not able to change other people.
We are not able to change other people. It's funny that you use the word change, and that just a lovely segue, because part of the conversation here is talking just a little bit about our the series and the new product line that we've been launching here at Your Clear Next Step called Changemakers, and you have been part of the launch efforts on that and part of the building of that. And emotional intelligence plays a really, really important role in Changemakers. And as we think about change makers and the change makers in our organizations, these are the people who really can affect change. And we can't change people. We know this. We can't change people. We can change ourselves, change our attitudes, but we can't change people. But change makers are those who can affect change in an organization or in an organizational context, and can move things forward. And consistently, those are the people who put the good of the organization first. Those are the people who consistently make authentic human connection. And those are consistently the people who recognize and treat change as a process, not an event. And when we think about self-awareness, right, this is squarely in that authentic human connection part. And so I want to pause just a little bit, Sheri, and let you talk about authentic human connection and how you see self-awareness showing up in the examples that you've seen about how people change and how people change situations and change relationships or change the world or make things better, making that authentic human connection through self-awareness and maybe some of your experiences there.
Mhm. Well, and I think too that, I mean, self-awareness is not an event either. It's a process, and we're something we need to continue to work on every day until our time is up, basically, because, neither of us is the person we were 10 minutes ago, even, or, certainly 10 years ago. So I think just recognizing that about everyone, and each of us is going to be confused by the actions of other people, or confused by the lack of buy-in by a team, or confused about someone's inability to complete a project. And we're going to think, oh, if they just put forth more effort, or if they just tried harder, or if they were just smarter. I mean, this is, our brains are going to judge because that's what they do. But, really stepping back and realizing, oh, wait a minute, I understand my intentions. I don't understand that person's actions. And maybe there's a reason for it. But just asking questions is so beneficial and has been throughout my life. And there have been times when there's one particular project I remember working on that there was a person who was really not buying into the project. Everyone was pretty excited about the project. Well, okay, excited might be a stretch. Everyone was pretty willing to work on the project, but there was one particular person who I could just tell she did not want to be part of it. She was not buying in. And as uncomfortable and awkward as I felt, I just asked, I said, hey, I'm recognizing that you're not buying in, and I really appreciate and respect the experiences you have. And I really just want to understand what's your perspective on this, and help me understand, what are some of the challenges you see? And that led to a connection that we had throughout the rest of my time at that company, because people just want to be understood. And I think so often we think that if we try to understand someone, that's going to make it appear as if we agree with them. And understanding isn't necessarily agreement. I mean, there are times, again, going back to my husband, where I'll nod, say, okay, I understand. I'm not saying I agree. I'm just simply, acknowledging that I'm hearing you, I'm listening you, I'm understanding where you're coming from. And I think we often think, okay, if I try to, well, first of all, I think asking questions is often awkward. And oftentimes, if we don't have our own self-awareness, we just think there's, make this assumption that there's something wrong with everybody else, or somebody's trying to be a pain. And really, most people aren't ill-intentioned. They're just living their life, being who they are, having their own experiences. And so when we get curious and just ask questions, it just leads to more authenticity and understanding of one another. And then sometimes you agree to disagree, but at least you know why.
Well, at least you know why, and at least you've had a chance then to make that authentic human connection. And if you're doing that from a place of awareness, where you've been able to be aware of who you are and what you're bringing to the table, and you've given them the opportunity to do the same, to be aware of who they are and what they're bringing to the table, I think together we can move forward just so much more effectively.
And understand why you might be misaligned. Maybe someone has completely different values, completely different things than you do. And then it's just a matter of understanding, oh, wait, they value this, I value this. And those are just, maybe there's a conflict there, but it's not just that the person's a bad person. Right.
Right. We just have different values there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. So we've been here talking with Sheri Zevenbergren, and we've been talking about 5 fundamental reasons to develop self-awareness. And we are not taught how to be self-aware. Our time is limited. Self-awareness allows us to recognize we have more choices than we think and fewer problems than we think. And understanding ourselves allows us to better understand others. So Sheri, this would not be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask you, what's making you even better these days?
Some of the groups that I'm in, and I think just the people that I'm surrounding myself by. I used to think, oh, I have enough friends, I have enough family, I have my colleagues, and it just felt like expanding beyond that was just going to be yet another commitment, another thing to do. And now that I've really expanded beyond the environment that was right in front of me. It's just so exciting to hear the perspectives of other people and learn from other people's experiences, and just really hear the perspectives of other people and understand what they're seeing about me that I can't, because I just live in my life the way I am. So yeah, I'm in a couple different masterminds and just coaching groups, and, involved with your Clear Next Step now, which is just so exciting, and just so recognizing that I'm energized by different types of people and putting myself in those groups and in those spaces with people with different backgrounds, and just making it happen. It's really helping me become a better person too.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you, Sheri. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Sinikka. I could spend 7 hours on here with you, 7 or 8.
Right back at you.
Right
back at you. This has been a joy. This has been a joy. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining in. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.